ask you today about a lot of things, but one of the first things I wanted to talk about was you face some unique challenges, and you've talked about it before. It's something that's inspired me. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges you faced?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy when I was 18 months old, and I have mild cerebral palsy that affects the right side of my body. It affects the strength, mobility, flexibility, range of motion, and just control on both my arm and my leg. I remember when I was younger, growing up, obviously this happened when I was 18 months old. I was diagnosed. I don't remember the doctors telling my parents this, but they told them that they weren't sure if I was going to be able to walk. Because the reason they went and got me diagnosed is I was still crawling at the time. And about 2 weeks later, I started walking, and my dad said, he's like, yeah, you don't care what anybody says, you just do whatever you're gonna do. Growing up, I went through, like most kids with any type of physical disability, went through some like mild PT from about, I think, 5 years old till I was 9. My parents told me that the PTs basically told them that, well, he's as good as we can get him. Anything else he does on here is gonna be on his own. When I was in 7th grade, decided I wanted to start wrestling because I was playing basketball in gym class, and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna make the basketball team. I'm terrible at it. I'm gonna try this wrestling stuff, see how it goes. And I remember going home to tell my dad, I was like, hey, I'm gonna wrestle. And he's like, it's gonna be tough. Those are the toughest kids that you're ever gonna meet, and they're basically fighting without punching. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine at it. I'll be fine. I always had this like belief that I could do anything, even if like people were telling me that I couldn't. And even when people told me I couldn't, it made me want to do it more. My first year wrestling, I lost every match in 7th grade. Next year, I won a little bit more. Going into 9th grade, our high school hired a new coach, Keith Jones. He just finished wrestling at University of Buffalo. And I started wrestling. I started going to all the off-season practices, off-season workouts, worked really hard. My freshman year, I lost every match until our last duel of the season, and I was able to win that last match of the season before the postseason began. I was watching an MMA fight with a couple of my friends, and I saw it was Shogun versus Henderson, and I was like, I need to do that. I need to do that. I got to do that. And my friends thought I was crazy because this was one of the bloodiest fights we'd ever seen. And I go home, I'm starting to Google schools and stuff, and I find there's this school in Robinson that has a Renzo Gracie jiu-jitsu program with Warren. And I was like, oh, I gotta check that out. And my one friend that was gonna do jiu-jitsu with me, he was like, I don't know, that's a little far away. There's another school that we should check out. We went and checked out the other school first. And the instructor told me, he's like, oh, you wrestled. We gotta break that out of you. You're gonna have some bad habits from wrestling. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make it. I'm like thinking to myself, that doesn't make any sense. Every UFC champion does both jiu-jitsu and came from a wrestling background, so that doesn't make any sense. And I looked up jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and then Warren's name came up. So I was like, oh, well, this guy has to be the guy to go learn from. Met him, and that's kind of how I got started in jiu-jitsu with Warren, with Stout PGH that used to be Renzo Gracie Pittsburgh 10 years ago. But yeah, so that's how I got started though.
I know we've been training, you and I have been training a lot in jiu-jitsu. What are some things that you're thinking about, some goals that you have now as far as a competitor?
I've yet to win an IBJJF match. So that's like the primary goal for me right now, is win a IBJJF match. After that, I want to see how far I can go in jiu-jitsu, and I don't know how far that is.
How has that having to work extra hard, having to overcome a disability, how has that influenced the way that you coach other people when they are coming up against a roadblock or something that's limiting them?
I've had wrestling coaches and jiu-jitsu coaches that are just freak athletes and things come easy to them, and they're like, oh, just move your foot over here, that's really easy. And it's like, it's not as easy for some people that aren't as athletic, and I see that, so I try to really break down how to move for somebody that is not an athlete. For somebody that's brand new, the number one thing I think, and I think it has nothing to do with what we do, it's the overall perception of what we do in the general society and community around us, is the idea that it's going to be scary or intimidating. And trying anything new is scary and intimidating, of course. But I think that the biggest step is come through the door.
How do you think about believing in yourself when other people doubt you?
I remember when I was a little kid, 4 years old, I was telling my dad, I'm going to be a Major League Baseball player. My dad would tell me, you can do anything you set your mind to. You just got to put the work in yourself. No one's going to help you out. And you got a added disadvantage over everyone else. You just got to work harder than everybody else. And that's what I've always thought about.